Thanks for coming tonight. This is I never get sick of talking about football players, so this will be fun for a change here. After the draft, we're going to go into some other administrative type things to finish up the season, but so I get back to football a little bit now.
All right, so this was a little bit different situation this year with the draft than the years before, in a good way of picking later, which you always want to do. But then there's a whole lot more factors going into it, especially in that first round that you don't know, as compared to, I don't know, picking first overall, where it was kind of all up to you. So what were your approaches like this year as compared to the last few years, and how did it change the way you went into the draft that first night?
Well, it doesn't seem to matter where you're picking, unless you're picking 1 overall. But if you're picking 7 overall, there's 3 players that you're praying falls to you, and it did that year with Mike Evans. And then this year, 19, of course, we're glad to be picking later. We want to be picking 32, but it's there were 10 players, really 6 or 7, that just wanted desperately. And OJ was one of them, and I didn't think. Even though I had people on my staff telling me that or one person saying that there's a very good chance it could, just because the history of the position. Tight ends don't normally go very high in the first round, that there's a chance that he could get to us. But sure enough, he did. So we were beyond excited.
As you start watching the draft, what was going through your mind? I think everyone probably sits there imagining, if I'm in your shoes, everybody likes to be that armchair GM around the draft time. So as it's happening, I just can't imagine how many factors are rolling around in your head of the different positions and where the guys are on your board and what might happen, what might not happen. I just try to explain a little of the thought process.
Well, going into the draft, of course we have our draft meetings. Like this time of year, we start our next year's draft already this time of year. So we start preparing for it at least. So guys are out there writing reports on these players for next year. So by the time right now there's about 2,000 prospects for the draft next year, and then by December of next year there'll be we'll have it down to 300. And then on actual draft day, I have it with my staff, we have it whittled down to between 100 and 150. This year we had 135 guys that we deem as draftable players for us, guys that we think would have a very good chance, strong conviction, would make our team in some sort of role, whether it's a starter or a role player. So after we get that whittled down to 135 this year, we go through every scenario imaginable of, if this guy's here, who do we take? If this guy's in striking distance, we go up and try to trade up for him. If we move back, which players have to be gone for us to move back and try to pick up extra picks. So we go through those. It takes several weeks of doing that. We get very tired and grueling meetings of what we're going to do in every scenario. So on draft day, it's pretty seamless. We know what we're going to do. We have our plan. If this happens, we're going to do this. And then the one scenario out of 18 million that we did one where OJ came to us and we said, we're taking it. So that was pretty easy. I turned that card in within like 1 second.
You like ran that sucker up.
Oh yeah, it came across the screen as soon as Tennessee picked. It was a Kansas pick right after.
The easiest pick you made. Although I heard there was still a little sweating happening as leading up to that point. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, there was a little bit of sweat.
Yeah.
I think I soaked through my sport clothes.
And also, I think a lot of people, they pay so much attention to the first round of the draft. But man, there's 2 more days that have so many other picks that we've seen, obviously guys like Quan Alexander that you can get that are later on that become some of the massive players on your team. So what are those days like compared to day 1, and when you can look at all those scenarios in the first round, when obviously you're at a point now where you can no longer have all those scenarios out and how those decisions get made?
Well, that's why we have our draft board, which you can imagine has every position going horizontally, and then the best players at the top down to the bottom. The best at the top down, second best, third best, all the way down. Then on draft day, I have a board, a 135 board that I talked about, where I literally have them ranked 1 to 135. If we were picking 1, this is who we take. If we were picking 50, this is who we take, assuming that the 49 players above would take. It never works out exactly that way. Every team, has different flavors that they like. And some teams have a guy in the 6th round, and another team might take him in the 2nd. So it just doesn't. Everybody's different. But so as the draft goes on, you'll see which player is standing out there like a sore thumb that we have targeted, because every player on that board we have targeted in one shape or form, and we take it. So we put need into it. We also take character into consideration. We'll medical grades, psychological tests, interviews, as well as number one, and first and foremost, their ability as a player.
And for you, you talked about how every team has kind of different priorities maybe and the way that they value guys. Is there anything that for you personally that maybe you value a lot about a guy, especially as compared to other teams that you just know for you, this is something that you want in a player that maybe along the intangible lines, especially not just a good 40 time, but an intangible that you value?
Yeah, you know, in today's day and age, a lot of analytics gets thrown into the process. And you know, we have an analytics department, and I value what they do. We don't take a player based on numbers, but it's talent first and foremost. But there's some analytics that we take into account. But every team does that, so it's a level playing field. So really, it comes down to getting the right kind of guy. And he's got to be a good player. He's got to be the right kind of guy. When I say that, I don't necessarily mean he's got to be a humanitarian and he's got to be, you know, helping people across the street. I mean, that's great. But when I say the right kind of guy, I mean he's a team first guy. He's passionate, loves football. Football is one of the top 3 things in his life. He's dedicated. He's strong work ethic, and he's got football intelligence. Not necessarily book smarts, but football intelligence.
And then finally, on that day 3 of the draft, I think people assume once the Mr. Irrelevant pick comes in, that's it, the draft is over. But then some of y'all's craziest times come right after that. So explain a little bit about the process of after the draft and all of the undrafted guys and what happens at rookie minicamp.
Yeah, they should really fix that process because it's a pain in the butt. It's so we have guys that are left on our draft board. This year we had 4 guys left on our draft board after the draft was over, which was pretty, you know, going into the 7th round, I was a little nervous that we wouldn't have any. So at that point, we would probably trade for next year's pick or draft somebody just to keep him from becoming a commodity with other teams as a free agent. So that's what a lot of teams do with their late picks. But we have guys targeted that if they don't get drafted, we're going to sign them as free agents. We signed 12 this year, I think. But other teams are trying to sign those same guys, so it becomes like a trading floor in the draft room. Scouts are on the phone trying to do deals with agents. I'm on the phone with agents. Coach Cutter's on the phone with players trying to recruit them. And you do this all within a 1-hour period. And then finally, after 1 hour, you have your 12 guys. You don't always get everybody you want. But then it's just a big sigh of relief when we crack over the years.
Everyone's favorite part of the draft weekend for sure. And so then you guys have rookie minicamp where you bring in all of those guys, tryout guys, undrafted, draft picks, and everybody. Tell us what happens in that weekend and what you especially can be looking for and learn from it.
Well, they come in and they immediately just get inundated with information. The playbook, the schedule, the meetings, the training room, equipment room. They just get a quick refresher, or not a refresher, but a quick just initial briefing of how everything operates here. They're in meetings for 5 or 6 hours a day, learning the playbook, and then they go out on the field and they look like a bunch of deer lost in the headlights because they really, it's their first day. It's like almost being a freshman in college or a freshman in high school here. So we just want those guys that want them to compete, play hard, work hard. We know that the playbook's not going to instantly come to them. It never does to any of them, no matter how smart they are. They have to. It takes a while to digest. But we just look for guys that are competing, and plus we can see the athletic ability in their movement. And you know, I can say that this year we were very excited about all of our draft picks that were out there, and a couple of the free agents. One of them was Andy Auclair, a Canadian tight end that we signed, that we were thrilled with. But we walked away, the coaches, scouts, everybody saying these guys were all better than we expected. So that's rare. You don't walk away saying this guy stinks, but these guys were all exceeded our expectations, which was huge.
That is huge. All right, now we're going to get a chance to look at some of the film of these draft picks to see what exactly Jason and the rest of his team saw in these guys. And this is pretty incredible. These are the exact clippers and everything of how a meeting would run. You guys are in one of the team meeting rooms. This is where the whole team comes in to watch film. And Jason's going to take us through some of these clips of guys in college.
Well, our first guy, obviously, is O.J. Howard. And O.J. I had 3 players on our board that I deemed completely clean. Now, every player, there's risk to every player. No player is a sure bet. Doesn't matter if you're picking 1 overall. In fact, out of the 260 players that get drafted every year, or 258, whatever it is on that given year, if you go back and we study the last 20, 30 years, an average of 50 to 60 players out of every draft class actually become good players. and actually remain with their team for a second contract and are deemed what I call, solid players in the NFL. So that's only about 23%. So about 23% of the draft actually they really work out after 5 years. So first round it's about 50%, second round about 50%, but then it goes down 40, 30, 20, 10. So if you hit on a late round pick, you're cooking with Crisco, like a Quan Alexander in the fourth round. It's awesome. And so that's where our scouts make their hay, and that's where they get started in their cap, those later round picks. But this is O.J. Howard. What makes him clean is he's big. He's almost 6'6". He's 251 pounds. He ran a 4.53. We timed him 4.49, 4.41 at other times. So he's as fast as Mike Evans, and he plays tight end. He can also block, and that's the key thing with him. Some tight ends can't block. So when you have him out there, the defense knows that you're not going to run the ball if he's out there. With OJ, you don't know if we're going to run or we're going to throw, because he's also a threat in the passing game with his speed and his athleticism. There's just a couple clips here. He's at the top of the formation. You can just see his length, 6'6", how long his arms are. He's a big target to make the contested catches, and he's a true mismatch. Defenses have trouble, they don't know whether to put a corner on him. Corner's too small, safety's usually too small, linebacker's too slow. So, now, it's not as easy as it sounds now. You still have to scheme it right. This one, he's wide open, so.
Let's run that scheme.
Yeah.
That seemed to work.
And then I think we got a little clip of him blocking. It's not in line here. I could have put some of those in, but this just shows the effort and tenacity that he has, which is once again rare for an athlete of his size and his speed. So, needless to say, he's a super guy, scores off the charts in all the intangible type things. So, we're, once again, couldn't be happier with the fact that he fell to us. And I'll get a lot of credit for it, but it was really easy. Justin Evans, safety from Texas A&M. He was a junior college transfer. He was a baseball player, a very good baseball player as well in high school. 2-year starter at Texas A&M. The thing we liked about him is he's fast, he's very rangy, he's very athletic, he turns punts as well, he's had some success doing that. But this guy has got great ball skills, but he is a ferocious hitter. You have to dial it back a little bit with him. He's today's penalties and all those things. Plus, he gets a little over-aggressive at times and has missed a few tackles because he's going for the home run. So, but we would rather take a guy like that than take a guy that's afraid to stick his head in. So these guys are easier to coach and get it out of. He had the hit of the year 2 years ago against Alabama with Derrick Henry. He really blew him up. It was all over Sports Center. I didn't put this on the clip because I thought everybody had seen that 100 times. This shows his instincts. He's playing zone coverage here. Sits in the hole. Got great hands. In the NFL, he can get up and run in it. Yeah.
He said people at A&M thought they were related. They had to tell him all the time that they weren't.
Another play where he shows that he's a heat-seeking missile here. So our two things that we wanted to do in the offseason to simplify it, we have a little bit more elaborate plan than this, but to simplify it, we wanted to get faster, more explosive on offense, have playmakers. We want to get more physical on defense. So we did that with Deshaun, did it with OJ, Chris Godwin we'll get to. And on defense, got more physical with him, and then a couple other on draft picks, as well as J.J. Wilcox. This is Chris Godwin, 2-year starter at Penn State. Got 4.41 speed there. He's 6'1", 209 pounds, almost 210 pounds. Actually, we timed him at 4.38 as well. That was his average time, 4.38 or 4.43. So, on tape, when we watched him, you never thought he ran 4.38, but he was always getting behind the coverage. And he's just such a smooth runner. We had him out here in minicamp, and sure enough, he is a 4.38 guy. This is versus Ohio State. This is Gary Conley up top that he's going against, who's a first-round pick by the Raiders. Now, Chris is lined up outside. He's lined up in a slot. He's a really, really intelligent guy. One of their hardest workers they've had on their team in a long time. Captain type material. So a lot of things to get excited about him in terms of his intangible, we call traits. You can see he kind of runs just effortlessly, and guys can't catch it. We hope Deshaun Jackson is here for a few years, but we want to prepare for the future as well. And we can't have too many good football players as weapons for James.
That weapons for Winston thing this offseason seemed to work pretty well.
This was a big game for him versus USC in the Orange Bowl. Probably the best game of his career. Not only did he make this play, he had a ton of plays on Adoree Jackson, who was the pick right in front of us at 18 of the Titans. So, versus really good competition, he's had success. This is Kendall Beckwith, linebacker at LSU. He's a 3-year starter. He started with Quan there, and kind of ironically, he was the Mike linebacker, which Quan is for us now. Quan was the Sam linebacker, which this guy is going to compete to start for right now. So the roles are reversed right now. Kendall got hurt this year, and he had knee surgery, and he's going to be ready to go by training camp. He's already running and cutting and doing things. We're just going to take it slow with him, conservative, make sure he doesn't re-injure. But he's going to be ready to go. We're pretty confident. He's a big guy, 245 pounds, but if you stand up next to him, he looks like he's 265 pounds. Now, he brings the wood. He's a very physical guy. He also has good speed for his size. We think for a lot of teams, he could be a 3-down player and start at Mike. We're lucky to have him as a Sam right now. Loves football, really smart football player. He's a small town kid, has 4 horses. He's just a really fun guy to get to know. Appears laid back, but he loves to play. He's also played some defensive end early in his career, so he knows how to rush, which is important for us for the Sam linebacker position. So I'll put a clip on there of rushing. All right, one of my favorite value picks is Jeremy McNichols from Boise State. He had 88 catches over the last 2 years. He's also rushed for over 3,000 yards. He's from Long Beach, California, so Deshaun Jackson is pretty excited about that. That's where he's from. Super productive guy, and we thought the best pass protecting back and had the best hands in the draft this year. He played with an injured shoulder this year, and he had it repaired after the combine. He played with it all year. He played with a lot of pain through it, which we like. Now it's fixed. He'll be ready in training camp. But a guy that can catch and block, and he also runs 4.49. He's a shorter back, but size, height really doesn't matter and figure into success rate of running backs. It's more about your thickness in your lower body. And he's a 215-pound guy, 5'9". Bounces off a lot of tackles, has great balance, he's got great feet. It shows his speed here to get the corner on the outside versus the safeties and corners. He's been an ultra-productive guy. Just happens to be from Boise State. Shows him receiving here. Anytime you can get a back that you can flex out, put in a wide-out position, which he did play as a freshman, and have the type of skill that he has as a receiver and catching these balls, this is hard to do for these backs. And it's hard for a defense to defend. Because once again, they don't know what to do. This poor guy here is a big linebacker. they caught him in the defense. They knew right away. And then last, but not least, big Stevie Tui Kolawatu. I don't know if you guys are aware of his story. He played at Utah, he graduated, and then since if you graduate in college, you can transfer and go play anywhere you want for your 50-year eligibility. So he decided he and his wife, he's married, he went on a woman mission, he's a little bit older, 25 years old. He and his wife decided they're going to go play at USC. So packs up the car, goes to USC, wasn't getting his, going to enroll for another month or two, so he wouldn't get his housing stipend. So he and his wife lived in their car for a month and a half.
Wow.
They drive around to different beaches in Southern California, shower at the public showers, they barbecue at night, watch the sunset. Didn't tell a single person that he was doing this. He just thought that this is what you have to do, and he loved it. And he had a Suburban, they took the back seat out, he weighs 345 pounds, so he's
Suburban needed a new suspension after a while.
He's a big space eater. He's there in the middle and very athletic for his size, very light on his feet. Very instinctive guy, causes a lot of problems. This is versus Alabama. It's hard for the offense to establish a line of scrimmage when they're going against them, and that's said he went on his mission to the Philippines and lost 100 pounds. And he put it back on within like 2 months. He says where he grows up, they put mayonnaise in their baby bottles. So anyway, that's our draft pick. And then he said we signed several undrafted free agents. A couple of them every year make it. That's also a great avenue for us to improve our football team. One in particular, I mentioned Anthony Alclair, tight end. So we really upgraded our tight end unit over the weekend. We really upgraded our wide receiver group over the course of free agency and the draft. We added a couple safeties we're excited about. We still have work to do, but we feel like we're in a position to compete now. And you're always going to be trying to build. We're always looking for pass rushers. We're always looking for depth on the O-line. But I wish I had 28 picks, but we didn't. But we're very happy with what we got. So anyway, once again, I really appreciate you guys being here tonight, and I have a blast doing this all the time. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, let's hear it for Jason Light. Take the time out. Thank you all for being here so much. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your night and a great weekend.